Hello and welcome to Superpower Broadcasting. I'm your host, Kevin Castley. Thank you for tuning in. I want to talk about a meme that's been making the rounds over on Twitter, especially in lieu of today's debate, Twitter war with the anarchists, communists, ANCAPs, etc., in which a frequent reply to the hot gang's defense of Western hegemony, Western interests, Western interventions, etc., human rights as an institution, and so on and so forth, is this criticism that, oh, yeah, well, you guys are just shills for like the banking establishment and bankers and stuff, man, and all this kind of stuff. And oh, you're just shills for the status quo, man. That kind of retort, which is ironic considering the fact that these people amount to nothing more than bootlickers and water boys and defenders of the status quo in Russia, Iran, Syria, North Korea, and elsewhere. Any anti-American regime, essentially. Now, this should be obvious, but it turns out that you can support the West and support Western-led interventions without literally supporting every aspect of the status quo in Western countries. Oh, what a shocker, right? Total shocker. Well, no, it does turn out, of course, that you can be critical. You can actually want to improve the West while still recognizing that the West is, at the end of the day, the vanguard of liberty, and America specifically the vanguard of liberty and the champion of human rights. And this line of attack to essentially say, oh, you just support banker wars, man, that's dumb for a few reasons. The first is, obviously implicit there is this nugget of anti-Semitism that goes in with that. 9 times out of 10, the brainlet brigades that refer to the bankers when we're talking about war, when we're talking about humanitarian intervention, when we're talking about stopping Iran from being nukes, and they're talking about bankers, they're dog whistling against Jews. Let's just be real about that. Second is, okay, so you're accusing us of being shills for what, the bankers in the West or whatever. Meanwhile, they're totally fine with the banking establishment in Russia, Iran, Syria, North Korea, etc. They'll say, oh, no, that's their country. They can do whatever they want, man. So they go to bat for the Putin oligarchy for sure. And Sphere Bank, Alpha Bank, all that kind of stuff. They're totally fine with that. But additionally, I found the characterization myself as a shill for the bankers because I support action against North Korea and Iran to be particularly funny. Because for myself here, I call myself a wealth capitalist. I want to move towards an economy that is post-debt, that's post-usury. I want to essentially move towards an economy in which you generate wealth and then you purchase based on wealth as opposed to debt, and get out of this trap of essentially indentured servitude that we've got, where there's this 2-tiered middle class, and there's a class of people that are basically underwater, permanently underwater, because we've been sold out on this debt economy that has grown to be so large and encompassing that it has become a national security threat, especially when we're talking about public debt and we're talking about debt to communist China specifically. It's a massive problem. But for me to advocate for Western-led intervention in countries that are hostile to Western interests, that are menaces to their neighbors and their own people, oh, but by doing so, you're shilling for the bankers, man. That's so dumb. That's so dumb. I literally want to ban credit card companies. Like, what? No. There's a lot in the West that I criticize. There's a lot in the West that I'm critical of. So, for example, I don't like Justin Trudeau, and I've got a lot of issues with Joe Biden. Am I a shill for them because I support the West? No. I want to improve the West. I want to make the West better. I'm not a loser who's going to give up on the West just because it has certain issues that I don't like that much or I would wish to change, and just say, oh, I'm going to go and shill for the Russians and Iranians now and the North Koreans. That's dumb, because for all the faults that exist in Western societies, they are not 1/1000th of the degeneracy and the grotesqueness that exists in our enemies' regimes. It's not even close. Not even close. And again, you can support something and you can support Western interests while also recognizing that we should make some reforms in the West, that there are some regulations that should probably be gotten rid of because they're onerous, and that there are other areas in which maybe some regulations are actually necessary. And I've talked, for example, on the big tech issue. I don't support the status quo around big tech. I support either essentially recognizing that there's a natural tendency towards monopoly in these given sectors, and therefore we regulate these companies such as Facebook and YouTube, et cetera, as utilities. In other words, they can't kick you off just because you have views that their advertisers don't like, that sort of thing. Or we straight up would say you're either going to be seen as such a monopoly that we impose antitrust legislation, or straight up nationalize. I think either of those could work. I personally prefer the utility route, have private companies and the private enterprise still take hold and have all the benefits that come from that in terms of ingenuity and innovation. But couple that with an understanding that, look, you get to be in monopoly in your own sector here, but we're going to regulate you as a utility, and so that's the trade-off. So that's a reform I'd like to make, for example. Oh, but big tech's bad. Therefore, let's shill for what? The Russians, the Chinese, the North Koreans? No. You can improve the West and still advocate for Western interests, things that will help the West. I want the West to win, but I also recognize that the West in its current state is in need of some reforms. I'm not a loser sellout trader that's going to sell out my civilization down the river because there are a few things I don't like, and thereby go and shill for North Korea and Putin and Bashar the Butcher and the Ayatollah. That's pathetic. That's disgraceful. And to all the smart people out there, you can recognize this, but if you know people that haven't really thought this through, send this video to them. They could maybe get some use out of this. And if you enjoy my content, be sure to like and subscribe. I do daily streams and daily premieres. So 2 videos a day, every day, all year. So definitely make sure you're subbed to this channel, and I will see you in the next video. Stay based.